What's going on, carnivores? It's Kurt, and on this episode I'm actually going to take you to a couple supermarkets in the area. I think two major ones that most people have access to. One is Whole Foods, which is probably less available, and the other is going to be a super center Walmart store where they have the grocery section. So we're going to go to a big Walmart. We're going to go to the actual first original flagship Whole Foods store here in Austin. What I'm going to do is I'm going to walk through some of the items you may or may not want to consider while you're on a carnivore diet. We'll talk about how I would look at the items, and we'll go do some shopping. If you follow the channel, or if you saw the last video that went out, we talked about a beginner's guide. We focused on three main things. Go back and check out that channel if you're not sure, but in this process, we're gonna be looking at that as well. We're really gonna be looking at ways to get egg yolks. We're gonna be looking at ways to get fat intake up, and we're gonna be looking at ways to sort of focus on also getting, probably not organ meats because those are a little bit harder to get from grocery chains. We'll look around and see if Walmart or Whole Foods has them. But we'll be looking at other sources of the vitamins from different parts of the animal that are available in these stores. I want to encourage you when you go shopping to always be focused on the quality of the animal and the quality of the food. So, because this is an animal diet, really what the animal eats and how they were raised and the environmental factors that they experience in their upbringing are going to be directly absorbed by them, and that food is going to be then passed on to you. So when you're looking at animals and you're looking at the food you want to get in this carnivore diet, you really want to think about, was the animal organically raised? Was it injected with a bunch of hormones? Is it toxic if it's fish? Is it dirty? What side of the food chain is it on, and what part of the ocean was it in? And we'll go through all of that. The other thing we'll talk about is some dairy. We'll go about looking at some butter, ghee, cheese, things like that. I know a lot of people love dairy. I personally don't do too well with dairy, and I think it's triggering for a lot of people. But I also realize that for many people starting on the carnivore diet, dairy is not something they want to give up right away. So we'll see what we can do as far as shopping for higher quality raw cheeses and finding what we can in this market. All right, let's get started. We're set. I got my bag here. We're gonna pack this up. We're gonna head out. And I got a sun hat. It's gonna keep me from getting roasted here in the 100-degree heat of Austin. We're gonna cruise over to Whole Foods, and we are gonna get rocking. Before the storm, I'm gonna pop over here and look at the Hotbar. So there's a few things in the Hotbar that I would get, and there's a few things that I probably wouldn't get. You're pretty limited as far as what you can get. There's just so much stuff mixed into this food. So if I was gonna eat from the Hotbar at Whole Foods, I would probably go to the ham, maybe some turkey, and grilled chicken. The bacon bits, even those have brown sugar in them, sodium lactase, celery powder, so they're truly not carnivore. But as far as the Black Forest ham goes and the turkey breast, it's fairly clean. You're not getting a lot of ingredients, so those are good options for you at the Hotbar. On this side you can see there's just nothing that I would consider. We're not gonna mess with pizza, Then you've got fried chicken, mushrooms, There's just too many ingredients in most of this food, and there's a lot of bread and just animal product or plant products in here. The chicken probably looks good, but it's breaded, so I wouldn't go with that. Cauliflower, corn. when you kind of look at this, you're like, oh man, you really can't eat much, but trust me, your body will thank you later. You know, if you are gonna cheat, again, something like this, there's olive oil, a little bit of parsley, garlic, and salt. This chicken's probably pretty good for you. Pretty clean in terms of what your body could tolerate. Again, the great thing about Whole Foods is they'll list, and most grocery stores will list all the ingredients on their Hotbar, so you know what you're getting yourself into. You know, all these soups are going to be pretty plant heavy, so unless it's like a pure bone broth, which even then they put carrots, celery typically, you're not getting a real good thing there. Down here with the chicken teriyaki, yes, you have the chicken meat, but you've got soy sauce, which is loaded with soy, which is estrogenic. It's not a good idea. Rotisserie chickens actually aren't bad. I like rolling with rotisserie chickens when I'm traveling from time to time. I find I don't feel the best eating a rotisserie chicken, but it, generally speaking, is fairly clean. And here's an organic one, $10. It's really not that bad. I mean, if you look at the ingredient list, they don't have it listed here, but typically they just bake it with some seasoning, and for the most part, there's nothing else in there. All these drinks are just full of stuff. Kombucha. It's actually black tea and caffeine, so that's usually a pretty big challenge. Here's some great clean looking stuff, but again, the salmon's probably farm raised, which is going to be the highest quality. These are mixed with things. You've got breaded chicken. You know, when I'm traveling, sometimes I'll get roasted turkey, or I'll get like a pastrami. So you'll see some of these redder cuts of meat. There's some Canadian seasoned eye of round and roasted garlic eye of round. Those will probably be pretty darn delicious. You've got cracked pepper roast beef. I have bought that before, and I feel pretty good on that. So it's another thing to think about as far as red meat. These meats are pretty lean, though, so you're not really getting a lot of fat. So you got to be really conscious of that as well. So with the salmon and the chicken, again, it's really about the quality of the meat. So is the salmon farm raised or is it wild? What sort of sauce are they putting on the food? They've got some really great rotisserie chickens cooking in the back there that look pretty delicious. Stay away from the rest of this stuff. I'm not a big person that's a big fan of cheeses, but if you are going to do cheese, I would recommend raw, and also look at A2 dairy. So talk to the local folks here. See, for example, this is mature. You can see this cheese is pasteurized, so it's not raw. If it's unpasteurized, meaning they haven't put it through a process where they've heated up. Yeah. Do you guys have A2 dairy, by the way?
I'm sorry?
A2 dairy? I think it's like from yaks and goats. You know, they have goat cheese and things like that.
We have goat cheese, yeah, but no yak cheese.
Okay.
Yeah.
Where's your goat cheese?
Goat cheese is kind of spread throughout.
Okay. And then is all your raw dairy organized somewhere?
It's spread out too, but I our Gruyere, I believe, our Emmentaler.
Okay.
Le Marchal. This one here is one. Emmentaler. This is a raw Emmentaler.
So it listed on there, right? It just says raw on there?
It'll say raw.
Awesome, I see it. Or what?
Thermized.
Thermized, okay. So this is cave aged. This is cow's milk. Okay, unpasteurized cow's milk.
Were you looking for a code?
No, I'm doing a little video vlog for my YouTube, and the people on the YouTube. I'm just showing them what to shop for because I promote the carnivore diet. So, so the cheeses are a little tricky because of the dairy.
Yeah.
Some people just don't do well with dairy. So I'm kind of going around and just looking at the cheeses you guys have. And then you have more stuff in the back section somewhere. All right, so these are more processed meats, guys, or cheese, I should say. And then there's some organic meats in here. So I guess if you really were going to do cured meats, I would probably I would probably look at some of the darker meats like the hams and the organic versions of that. If you look at the package here, you can see less than 1 gram of sugar. The challenge again here with this stuff is it's so protein heavy and you don't get any fat in there, and you really want to focus on getting some fats. So that mixed with all the ingredients, it can be a little bit tricky. Here's another one. You can see it's not raw. It is pasteurized. And you saw before we had some raw ones in there. The thing with the raw cheddar is that the bacteria in there aren't killed, so they don't heat it up to a temperature where it's really just destroying a lot of that nutritional value in the cheese. So it tends to be a little bit more nutrient rich. I personally find that if I get cured meats, it messes with my gut. For some people, they can tolerate it really well. The content on these is actually better when it comes to balancing out your fat macros. So if you look at this, something like a sopressata would have about a 50% fat macro to protein. You're getting almost as many. You're actually getting almost as many grams. I'm sorry. It's going to give you 7 grams of fat to 6 grams of protein, which is about a 65 to 70% fat to protein calorie intake, which is kind of what you want to be shooting for on a ketogenic carnivore diet. So these meats can be really helpful. They can be a great way to get that way up. And if you can tolerate them, that's awesome. Again, I find that you just have to kind of eat them and see how you feel. For some people, it's really, really great. For others, it's a bit more challenging and tricky. Another really popular brand of jerky meats, cured meats. It's actually based in Austin, Texas, but they're very, very big now. They've got a lot of stuff. The trick with this is some of their bags have basically no sugar. Like this one right here, the venison. You see there's 11 grams of protein in here and only 5 grams of fat. So it's probably 50-50. Fat, remember you get about 2 calories per gram of fat. You get twice the calories per gram of fat as you do protein. So even though it says 5 grams of fat and 11 grams of protein, you're actually getting about 50% of your calories in one serving of this from fat as you are protein. So this might not be bad. And it's also from grass-fed venison, which is basically deer. So this would be a good one. A lot of times you can tell by the title, maple glazed and smoked tender salmon bites. They're going to be a little bit trickier. This one's going to have quite a bit more sugar in it. You can see here it's got 6 grams of sugar. More grams of sugar than it does fat, which isn't a good thing. And on top of that, in the ingredient list, you'll see that they've got maple sugar, coconut oil, sea salt. So the maple sugar and the coconut oil are things that try to steer clear of. Sriracha brands up top are going to be spicy. They're going to have probably going to have some nightshades and pepper in there. So you got to be careful with that and how that affects your gut. The uncured bacon and pork, I've had this before. It's actually decent. It just needs salt usually in my experience. And really it's pretty simple. They have a little bit of vinegar and celery in here, but for the most part there's no sugar. The fat macro protein balance is pretty solid on these. So I usually get something like that. And then they also have a bison that's uncured. And this one does have sugar though, unfortunately. So if you look at this, you can see there's about 4 grams of sugar to every 6 grams of protein. And they kind of label it sweet and savory. So if it was not sweet, we'd be in good shape. But because they added the sugar, it's a little trickier. So I used to hate hot dogs, but then I started I kind of got in a little bit of a pickle one trip. I was just in Seattle about 3 weeks ago, and one of the things that I got at the Whole Foods there that really surprisingly I felt really, really good on was the organic grass-fed hot dogs that Whole Foods has. So again, I'm not as big of a fan of this stuff as just getting your meats from the butcher or getting it from their meat section, but if you look at this, you've got 10 grams of fat to 9 grams of protein. The ingredient list is a little bit longer because they've got some preservative stuff in here, but you know it's organic beef and it's grass fed. So right there, you know your omega-3, omega-6 balance is going to be better. The other thing too is a lot of these other ingredients in here, they've put them in parentheses here because there's like very minimal amounts, and for the most part all you've got in here is protein and fat, and it's fairly ketogenic friendly. So this is actually a pretty dang good staple if you're trying to kind of find something that you can take to work, maybe where you just want to microwave something up that keeps well. A pack of these is $6. You can get a double pack. I think the double packs are like $10. And then also Applegate makes a brand as well. I haven't really messed with these too much, but these are also 100% grass fed. These are the same price as the Whole Foods brand. And again, you're looking at 7 to 9 grams of fat to 7 grams of protein in a fairly clean, lean ingredient list. So this works out really well. As far as the other hot dogs go, you just got to be really careful. I think in general, you're going to get cheaper hot dogs with lower quality meat. But in my experience, you'll get GI issues. You're just going to find that they bulk produce a lot of these hot dogs and they use really low quality meat. So unless you're getting something that is really branded with the grass-fed title on it, it's probably not worth it, and you're going to just not feel that good on them. For bacon, it's kind of the same drill. They don't really title bacon with grass-fed, but you want to go for organic. I mean, if you're eating bacon that's not organic, then you're probably getting stuff in your diet that's from the pig and the pork that isn't going to be conducive to optimal feeling. In addition, I'm not a huge fan of bacon. I think it does have some nutrition, but I think you're better off getting thicker cut stuff like pork belly, and I think bang for buck, it's probably just as well off. Treat yourself if you have the budget for it and if you can tolerate it well, but otherwise stick to the organic cuts and limit the amount of bacon you're going to get to certain organic stuff in limited amounts. Arrived at the meat counter. So a lot of these meats are going to be marinated, seasoned with sugars and spices, and as a carnivore, you kind of want to steer clear of that. What you can get from the butcher is the grass-fed stuff, and usually that's in this area. Is this where all the grass-finished stuff is?
This is the lamb, and this right here is grass finished.
Okay, fantastic. So there's usually a section in the meat counter at Whole Foods where they keep all the grass-finished stuff. So it's not just enough to say pastured, it needs to say grass-fed. So if you look over here, you can see these cuts here are pastured, which means the beef did live on a pasture, but they finished it with grain. And you'll see that the steaks tend to be more marbled. The fat will be whiter in content because of the grain that populates there. If it's grass-fed, then that means that the entire life cycle of the animal was grass-finished all the way. This gives you a better, more natural kind of nutritional breakdown from the animal itself. You're better balancing your omega-3, omega-6 fatty acids because grass-fed meat has a better balance there. It's also been shown to have better amounts of vitamin C, vitamin E. There's just a higher, richer nutritional breakdown, and you're avoiding potential pesticides in the grains from the pastured but grain finished. So one of the absolute go-to steaks I always get when I come here is a beef chuck roast. It's super cheap. We're talking $9 a pound. It's great. It's got a good balance of fat to protein, and you're not shelling out $19 a pound or $17 a pound for the top sirloin and the ribeyes. The grass-fed ribeyes can be $20 plus a pound. I also look at lamb and put a focus on lamb. With lamb, if you can find a good price for it, the lamb can be really great because most lamb is going to be grass-fed. Not all, but the large majority of it. Now this is local and it's on sale. I'll ask them about it. It says pastured bone-in lamb shoulder chops. So that means it may not, because it doesn't say grass-fed, may not be actually grass-finished. Do you know if this lamb is grass finished? Yeah, it is. Awesome. Can I get like 2 pounds of this shoulder chop? So there you have it. The lamb itself. Lamb is just usually, it's a good bet to be grass finished. Where do you guys get this? Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah, I see your livestock farm here one. Yeah. That's cool. You know what? That's plenty right there. Yeah, I'll take that right there. So I just talked to the butcher there, and they have organic chicken livers back here. So look at this, $4 a pound. So if you can't get to a butcher shop, but you have a Whole Foods, and liver will give you a lot of vitamin A, a lot of your B vitamins, vitamin C. I'm not as big a fan of the chicken meat, but again, anytime you can get liver, you're in great shape. It's going to be better than, not having liver at all in your diet. They said they also sometimes carry it down here. It does look like they might have some liver down here. So usually they hide it in these little walk-ins. So here we go, 100% grass-fed, grass-finished beef liver. So I'm gonna swoop on that. They've got a couple pounds here, and that's frozen up, so that's perfect. Again, look at the price on this. They're selling it at Whole Foods for $4 a pound, grass-fed beef liver. That's insane. So, score one for the carnivores on that. I don't even get that cheap from the farmer's market, directly from the farmers. Another big brand that they have here in Whole Foods is Panorama Farms. They make pretty high quality stuff. It's all organic, grass-fed meats. So if you see this label, you're pretty safe to bet that the quality of the food is going to be pretty high. You're paying $6.99 a pound here. It's not ridiculous, but it's also not the cheapest, so totally get that. If you're on a budget, you could also look at some higher quality organic other items. They usually have sale tags as well, so watch out for these yellow sale tags. Sometimes they'll have organic or higher quality pastured foods with sales tags. Like that lamb that we just picked up, you can see the yellow tag over there that I had for that lamb. So it's, for less than $7 a pound, it's really not a bad deal. Here's another hidden Hotbar they have in the back here of the store. They usually have barbecue and chicken back here. So they'll have smoked pulled pork. So the seasoning on this is pretty limited. So I can usually tolerate this pretty well, especially if I put some salt on it. I'm usually in pretty good shape. The other thing they have here is chicken wings. But again, you'll see that some of this contains soy and wheat. So it's just not ideal. Looks delicious, but you're just dealing with some seasonings and things that you probably don't want in your diet. So guys, we're in the dairy section here. There's gonna be more cheeses in this section. And I've got to tell you that there's gonna be something you definitely do not want. This is fake meat. It looks like real meat, but it's not real. It's all fake. All of it. I feel bad about that, but it is what it is. So we're coming into the section where eggs are. Again, we get lots of choline, we get iodine, omega-3 fats. They're just really great sources of a lot of the micronutrients that you want in your diet on a carnivore diet. And it's one of the essentials. It's one of the simple essentials I talked about in the beginner's guide. You need to get eggs in your diet. So when you're looking at eggs, you want to pick out pastured, because cage-free or free-range doesn't mean anything, but pastured does. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna look at a few of these brands and I'll show you, and we'll go through them. There's a lot of options here, so it can be a little overwhelming. So come over here. I would say avoid the processed stuff. Eggs are usually affordable enough. And here's the thing. These are organic. They're cage-free. Again, that doesn't mean anything. You can't guarantee that these chickens were running around in a pasture eating insects. They were probably fed some sort of organic feed. It's probably better than regular eggs. You're looking at $4.20 a pound, but it's just, you can get, I think for the money, you know, what you're putting in your body is so important. These eggs just aren't worth it. So if we come over here, we've got organic, large Organic Valley eggs. These are fed with an omega-3 heavy grain diet, probably of some sort. Again, these eggs are not certified as pastured, which means they're not necessarily running around eating the insects in their natural diet. I see this brand out in Boston. When I go back home in Seattle, I see it as well. Again, if you follow me on other things, you'll know that I actually buy my duck eggs directly from the farmers. Some Whole Foods will carry duck eggs. You'll see them in Seattle and Bellevue back home. Shout out to all my good friends who follow me on my stuff there. I really appreciate your support. And I miss a lot of you. Love a lot of you, my family. But the eggs here, these are, and I have these. I've been eating these actually. I probably put these on one of the last videos here. These are probably the best go-to eggs you're gonna find at a Whole Foods if you want to focus on quality. So we're talking $7 for a dozen. These are organic and pastured. So that's the 1-2 combo you're looking for. If you compare these eggs, so $7 a dozen versus $10 for a dozen of duck eggs, the size of a duck egg, the average size of a duck egg is probably, the yolk is probably about the size of the shell. The yolk on this egg is probably about half of this volume in a chicken egg. So I think dollar for dollar, not only are the duck eggs more nutritious, their shells, they're also likely to last longer, they're less allergenic for most people, and they're higher in most of those micronutrients. You're getting dollar for dollar probably more value if you can find a source of duck eggs. If you can't, go with these. If you can't do organic pastured, I think also going for a farm that also has an organic process and does pastured eggs, but maybe does just pastured. I used to just buy these pastured eggs from organic farms. You can basically get another 6 eggs, you know, get 18 instead of just a dozen and a half. That's not organic. But again, you got to be careful because the feed, if it's not certified organic, that yogurt is probably the best thing to roll with on a carnivore diet. Again, if you follow my other stuff, you'll know that I'm not a big fan of dairy in general. I think it's quite triggering for a large amount of people, and you can get calcium through eggshells, through supplementing just pure calcium, through small fish bones. So generally speaking, I'm not a big fan of dairy. If you are going to do dairy, I would say one of the better brands that I prefer is going to be the Kerrygold Irish butter. Butter is great because it's got a lot of macros. It's pretty heavy in vitamins, and it is delicious. But I also find that the better form of butter for me is ghee. I feel better on ghee. So also when you're looking at the yogurts and things like that, just be careful about the sugar content. Yogurts are notorious for sneaking in a lot of sugar. Most of these yogurts are just going to be stuffed with a huge list of ingredients and a ton of sugar. I mean, most of you probably already know this, but you know, let's just look at the back of this one, for example. We've got 8 grams of sugar on this bad boy, and this is one of the healthier kinds, right? This is one of the quote-unquote healthy organic brands of yogurt. But again, what are you eating here? You're eating milk that's pasteurized, so basically the bacteria and the organic stuff there, you're eating cream, you're getting blueberries and sugar. Do you really want to be putting that in your body? I don't think there's a lot of value there. So a lot of these seafoods are going to be fairly processed. I don't recommend them. Here we've got wild sockeye fillets. This is a pack of 32 ounces. So what is that, 2 pounds? at $28. So you're paying $14 a pound. It's not the cheapest. Obviously, wild caught salmon is, especially sockeye, which is going to be from the Northwest Alaska region, is going to be pretty dang clean. You can see the price jump from $28 down to $20 for Atlantic farmed. But farmed in general has a pretty big stigma for being much less clean. You know, shrimp, I'm not a huge fan of these options. You know, for seafood, it's really important to make sure your seafood is clean, that you're getting it from a source that's reputable, because there's mercury in the ocean. We've polluted the ocean. It can be pretty risky, and for many people, they can actually get that from eating the fish. So here we have cold smoked salmon. This is from the Atlantic. You can also get it though from the wild, from the west. So here's wild Alaskan sockeye salmon that is smoked. Also watch out for smoked foods, meats, and fish. For me, smoked foods actually can be a little triggering. I find that I don't feel the best. I feel a bit of inflammation when I eat them, so just be careful. I would say, generally speaking, you want to just try to get the raw source of the fish. If you can get the fish that is less chopped up, that's better. So these ones are all seasoned. Again, there's going to be a lot of stuff on the seasoning. We've got some soy and wheat on this one. If anything, one of my go-tos when I come here is getting raw oysters. I have a shucking knife. I'll buy the oysters. You can get it for $1. Oysters are a powerhouse of zinc and B12. They also have other sort of minerals in them as well. They're just awesome, especially for male health, for reproductive health in general. They're going to be great for you. Let's talk about water. So again, you know, if you're approaching the carnivore diet, you might be in a situation where you are having health issues, and as a sense there, you might have less of a concern about spending more money on your food and your water and your sort of intake there. So the aisle over from this aisle has a ton of plastic bottled water. These bottles, these mineral waters here, especially right up here, the Mountain Valley sparkling water. They also have spring water in the back that's not sparkling, just flat water. And then Topo Chico and the Gorel Steiner. These are all glass contained bottled water. So when I travel, I always focus on getting a bottled water that ideally is from a glass container. The thing with bottled water that's in plastic is that the actual plastic leaches into the water, and we know that plastic is in so many things. I mean, it's in the food here that we're buying. To kind of limit that, which is why I use a Berkey at home for water filtration, and to buy bottled water from the glasses up here is probably a good move. And if you think you're getting away with not getting plastic in your diet by doing water that's in a aluminum can, the unfortunate news is that the cans are actually lined with plastic as well. So you're going to get quite a bit of plastic with the aluminum canned plastic lining that seeps into the food as well. Yeah, the water, the plastic might be BPA free, but it still has plastic that leaches in. And you see it in the blood work of people that drink a lot of plastic water and things that are plastic. So I focus on bottled water that's in glass, and I highly recommend the same thing. So I used to love snacking on chips and salsa. That was my jam. Now I just get the 4505 cracklings. These are pork rinds. So pork rinds are basically just pork cooked in pork with salt added. If you look at the ingredients here, we have pork cracklings and sea salt, fried and rendered pork fat. So the kicker here is I can eat these in moderation. If I eat them in more than moderation, then I start to feel a little bit not so good, just because they've got the rendered fat that they're cooked in, and so that liquid fat doesn't feel as good for me. They also are processed. For this brand, though, I know in particular, they do focus on a higher quality pork. They specifically talk about how they raise their meat and how they buy it and how they care for it. So I'm actually I feel pretty good about buying the 450 cracklings. They have other flavors too. This has a little bit of sugar and spice to it. So you can see here, they have palm sugar, spices, tomato. It's not truly carnivore. Obviously, it's a spectrum with carnivore in general, but I definitely go for the 4504 cracklings whenever I want to snack and kind of cheat. You can also do the Epic brand. This is down here, and it goes for a little bit less, it looks like. So with the Epic brand, they have a pink Himalayan sea salt pork rind. The thing I don't like about them is they brand it as a 40% less fat. You know, for most people on the carnivore diet, they're going to struggle getting their fat macros. So, you know, why not get a snack that's actually in favor of more fat, which these pork rinds, if you look at the macros, you're getting 6 grams of fat to 7 grams of protein. So it's much more balanced. You're going to have more fat in this than you are in the other mix. So I wanted to take you to an area that you may want to consider if you're transitioning. Maybe if it's not quite, you're not fully there yet. But generally speaking, when I first started on the carnivore diet, I got a lot of this bison tallow and beef tallow. The thing is that the fat there is it's rendered, so it's actually melted down into liquid form, and when you heat it up, it just liquefies. So this can be tricky on your gut. Some people can tolerate it well. I find that most people cannot, so that's why I don't promote it heavily. But if you look at this is 14 grams of fat. It's literally just fat, straight from beef, grass-fed. So it's a great source of fat if you can tolerate it. Same deal with the bison. They've got pork fat as well as duck fat up here, and these jars are fairly reasonable. You can actually get them on Thrive Marketplace for $7 or $8 a jar. You don't need to pay the $11 that's here at Whole Foods. The other thing too is they've got ghee. So for a lot of people, they can do ghee. Ghee for me is fine. I just don't do it. I actually have this brand right here at home, which is the organic Ancient Organics, and I have no issue at all. I get this through Amazon, but it doesn't affect me. I can do it fine in decent amounts with my food if I want to. I don't eat it just because I'm, again, kind of on a more strict carnivore regimen, and I just don't do dairy. But the ghee could be a good option for you if you're looking for other options. What's up, carnivores? So, beautiful night here in Austin. I'm actually kind of contemplating heading out to the next spot. I went to Whole Foods earlier and was able to walk through a lot of what was there, and it was a pretty good score. I actually found a few items that I did not expect to see there. I went to the butcher and they had some lamb. It was actually $7 a pound, so it was like actually really, really low cost. They also had beef grass finished liver, and it was $4 a pound, which is kind of a steal when you think about it. So stay tuned, carnivores, and let's go get it. Let's go get the bike. Let's go get everything going. All right, y'all. So we are at the Walmart. And I'm gonna hit up a few items here, and we're just gonna kind of cruise through and see what's up. So obviously here we got pizzas. I'm not gonna do anything here. So, I mean, these things are kind of sort of okay if you think about it. We're looking at pepperoni and mozzarella, but when you look at the ingredients list, I just don't think these are good. Like, overall, it's just too processed for me. I'm gonna show you where to go for the good stuff, how to get the clean goods. So here we've got some fish, some tilapia, some salmon. Again, trying to stay more in the Pacific coast with salmon, not really doing Atlantic. It's just not as clean. The tilapia is a little bit of a bigger fish, from what I understand. Probably want to stay and stick towards the smaller fish. The larger fish are just going to be more likely to have toxins and not be quite as clean. We do have some smoked salmon up here, but again, it's Atlantic. And if you look at the price per pound and what you're getting, you're just not getting enough. It's not a good value for someone who wants to be shopping for carnivore on a budget. Got big bags of fish in here. Again, it's really about quality. So for chicken, again, you want to think organic. A lot of chicken is grain fed, grain finished. Grains, especially if they're not organic, could be GMO. They could be laced with pesticides. Look for the stuff that's organic. These are like antibiotic-free turkey, drumsticks, antibiotic-free chicken. We've got some bone-in pork chop. You know, again, this stuff, it's all about what did your food eat, because that's essentially what the animal is taking in. You know, it's not terrible to eat meat like this. And here we've got a price per pound of $3.66, so you're getting a pretty good deal on this. When you think about the grass-fed chuck roast that I was at earlier at Whole Foods looking at, that stuff goes for about $9 a pound, $8.99. So you're paying a premium, but it's grass-finished, it's beef, it's a darker meat, it's going to be richer in sort of the nutrients that you're really going for on a carnivore diet. So this stuff here, round steak, again, we don't have any sort of information about where this meat really came from. We don't know the quality of the meat. It just doesn't tell you. So yeah, it's cheap. I mean, the cost per pound here, $4.83 for steak, but you know, you're putting stuff in your body, and that meat might be eating pesticides. It might have been eating other things that it's now passing into you, and you don't want that. Generally speaking, when you do steak shopping, look for cuts that are more marbled. Again, the key here is we're looking at more fat heavy with our meals. So you can see the marbling in here with the skirt steak. You can see down here with the racks, you've got a lot of marbling of fat. You've got ribeye steaks. These are kind of the king of the king for $8 a pound. I mean, that's a steal at Walmart, you know. But again, there's no guarantee here that this is going to be grass finished, that it's going to be without some sort of hormones or pesticides in there. But you can definitely look at the cuts and notice the difference from a ribeye to a New York strip. See how much more marbling is on the ribeye of the animal than just the strip. T-bone steak, which is basically a porterhouse with a smaller fillet. So here you have the fillet, and here you have a New York. So this New York is on one side of a T-bone, and then you have a fillet cut here. But if it's a smaller size, it'll be called what's called a T-bone versus a porterhouse. So now we're getting into Angus beef, which is a bit of a higher grade in terms of fat content. It doesn't necessarily mean it's any cleaner. This is what we're looking for, grass-fed beef. Now, I get it, your price just jumped up to $12 a pound, but you again, you know, when you're talking about your meats, it's just such a better quality of food to put in your body. This is really what we're going for when we're going for carnivore. It's going to balance your omega-3, omega-6s much better. It'll be much more balanced in omega-3s. Here's grass-fed ground beef. You know, we're looking at grass-fed chuck roast here at $6.96 a pound. $6.96 a pound. These are going for around $6 a pound. It's really, the prices aren't that insane here. This stuff is more processed. I'd kind of steer clear of it. So we talked about bacon at the Whole Foods. The idea here is that you want to get organic where you can. The quality of pork does make a difference. The other thing to look for is a lot of bacon's going to have a bit of additional stuff in here. If you look at the ingredients list, got pork, water, salt, sugar. So there's a little bit of sugar, but overall they're not really measuring any of it as being that much sugar. In general, though, pork belly is going to be probably more nutritional bang for your buck than bacon. Get it if you want it as a treat, but keep in mind, cured meats, hams, they can be okay, but you know, with ham, it's pretty lean. You don't get a lot of fat in the ham, so that can be a bit of a challenge. So for example, we've got deli fresh here, uncured ham. we have 9 grams of protein to 1.5 grams of fat. No sugar, which is good. But again, you don't need to worry too much about protein on this diet. Yeah, you're gonna get protein from the meats that you're eating, but really where you wanna focus your efforts is on maximizing your macros for your fat. If you're gonna eat cheese, I would look for cheese that is raw, if it can be, higher quality, organic. We saw Kerrygold here at the other Whole Foods, or at the Whole Foods. Here's unsalted and here's salted. When I did do butter, I really did like their salted, pure Irish butter. I think ghee is a little bit better, and I'm sure Walmart has ghee as well. Here we go. We've got Vital Farms pastured eggs. You know, out of all these eggs I see here, here's one that's organic, but it's cage-free, which is not nearly as good as pastured. These I would definitely go with the Vital Farms pastured. The egg yolks are, as we talked about, are really nutritious for your diet, but you don't want to be, you know, the egg yolks are going to carry what the animal has. So dairy is another one with the milk. These are all pasteurized milks. None of this is raw milk. So I don't really see a lot of benefit in just unpasteurized or pasteurized milk. You're looking for, this would be like maybe the Faye. But even here you've got 7 grams of sugar, and it's like they put milk in here, they put bacteria. Who knows if they were any good or not. You know, again, we're at Walmart, so our selection is a little bit different than what we're looking at when we go to Whole Foods, which is fine. It's just a different demographic, and what you have available looks really good on this to your protein. This is a great way to kind of bump up your macros. I'm kind of erring on the idea that this is a pretty simple, solid choice for a sour cream. Now, generally speaking, I'm not a fan of canned fish. I think that most canned stuff in general, you're going to have a lining of plastic on it, so it's going to leach into the food. Try to limit the amount of canned food, but I also realize for a lot of us, you know, there's a spectrum of being a carnivore. So what I would do if I was actually looking at stuff here is I would focus in on the sardines, the smaller fish like the sardines and the salmon. All right, I would be a total hypocrite if I didn't say that I do cheat a little bit on the carnivore diet. And my cheat right now at this point is pork rinds. Now, I don't buy these. I buy the ones from Whole Foods that I showed earlier in the video, the 4504 brand. But if you did get pork rinds, I would say these look like the cleanest source. They're just fried pork skin and salt. And I know my colleague Eli at work loves these, so I'm going to get a bag of these because these are they're a solid go-to. So let's check out these middle sections here, see what they got. So here we have beef patties with Angus beef. So if you look on the back of this is $15. You're getting a third pound, so basically 5 pounds for $15. It's $3 a pound. And the ingredients list on this bad boy, the macros look pretty good. So this is fairly decent if you wanted to just do like a beef patty. So it is cheaper than buying the grass-fed we saw over there, but the grass-fed is going to be richer in your omega-3 fatty acids, which is good for your brain health, your heart health. It's going to be cleaner. You know, this one's more processed over here. All this like coloring on here with seasoning, that tells me that they probably put some sort of like sugar on there. This is 100% pure beef. Again, we don't know the source of the beef. There's nothing else in here though, so you know, if you're looking for beef, this might be a good way to get some of your beef in there. One thing I haven't mentioned too much is I don't really prefer ground beef as a general rule of thumb. I prefer steaks or cuts of meat that are more solid. The reason being, ground beef can be a bit dirtier. When they grind it up in the grinder, they're grinding up the meat and parts of the animal, and you assume that they're obviously doing it in a very clean, solid fashion, but you just don't necessarily know. One thing I'd probably do if I was on a budget is I would definitely get this. I would get the chuck roast. Beef chuck roast is like a solid go-to for me. You can thin slice this. This is grass-fed, grass-finished. I don't know if it's organic. It doesn't look like it is, but I would definitely still go for the grass-finished here, grass-fed. 30%, 40% of your calories is going to come from fat. The rest is going to be protein, but it does have some marbling in there. You can see there's definitely fat throughout this meat. So I would say it's definitely not a bad choice. You want to focus on cleaner sources of food. You want to keep in mind, especially with meats, what is the animal's environment? What have they been eating? What have they not been eating? Look at this, boys and girls. We just found ourselves some sliced beef liver. That is cool. I did not expect to see beef liver in Walmart, and there are pounds of it here. So, all right, check it out. Rumba meat. This is a great find. I would definitely score this. They're charging $2.25 per pound. It's probably not grass finished, and you don't know if it's organic, but nonetheless, beef liver is one of the best things you can eat there. Here's neck bones. So, this stuff right here, the neck bones, the liver, oxtail. Look how fat this tail is. This is oxtail. I would definitely go to town on this rack. I would buy the liver, the neck, and do the marrow. With marrow, you don't know how good it's going to be, so you got to kind of pace it. Sometimes it turns out really good, sometimes it doesn't. So I would try it, grill it up. I would definitely do the tongue. There's some cheek meat back here. I would try this cheek meat. These are kind of like the organs that you can see that they've got here. I would definitely go for these. Beef honeycomb tripe. So I don't know. I'd have to look into this. I don't know exactly what honeycomb tripe is. I would spend most of the time here, and then I would jump over to that grass-fed section, and I'd probably grab up quite a bit of the rest of what's left here with the chuck roast, and maybe some of these steaks if I was feeling ambitious and hungry, and some of the ground beef down here.